Crack diaries are the stories of lives on the edge, chronicled with unusual feeling and insight. The triumphs and sorrows of drug abuse are portrayed in cutting reality. The faces of crack are surprising and the lives are humbling. Everyone knows a crackhead. Sometimes you just don't know you know.
By the Savior this day.
Amen, brother. Amen. By Richard Blake Thomas. Every black preacher that comes along in Atlanta will forever be compared to one guy. We're talking about that slightly built, kind of short man with the gifted voice and committed heart, courtesy of God himself. Oh, there have been plenty of great ministers in Georgia's capital city over the years. On Auburn Avenue alone, the home street of Martin's Church, there were the Reverend H.I. Bearden of Big Bethel and W.M. Holmes Borders of Wheat Street Baptist Church. Right around the corner on Boulevard, there was the Reverend Dorsey of Tabernacle and Howard Creasy of Mount Zion, where the door swung open on welcome hinges. These churches were all in the 4th Ward, pronounced Fo-Ward, area of the ATL. The preachers were great orators all. These guys could make women swoon and men cry and testify, but they were also men of compassion who were driven by a sense of duty and responsibility to their communities. They made sure, even in the 40s and 50s, that Atlanta's economic pie was sliced and served in a more equitable fashion than in the past. These preachers, with the power of their flocks behind them, read votes, demanded and got black police, more tax dollars for schools, civic improvements in their neighborhoods, paved streets and sidewalks, and consistent and equal hiring in the city jobs. Every Atlantan, no matter the skin color, benefited from their hard work and sacrifices. This kind of courage may never come along again, but no one could compare to the magnitude with which Martin, that's what Atlantans called him, could raise the spirit and the body of anyone within hearing range of his voice. Atlantans, as well as the rest of the world, were hypnotized and humanized by the power of the booming prophetic prose that emanated from deep within his soul. Take care, Doc. We miss you. In the 80s, when crack cocaine began to run amok in Atlanta, no corner of society was untouched, including the clergy. This generation of God Spouting, money-hungry, evangelistic whores was led by a powerful threesome who were in the political, economic, and social elite mix of the city. If there was a politician that needed a face to help him over the hump, one of these young, popular spiritual healers with a megachurch was your guy. For a fee and a favor, of course. And through their various organizations, they met and became friends, and became even more powerful. Let's meet these godly fellows. First off, you have Anthony the Lion Tate. He was ordained at halftime during an Atlanta Falcons promotion stunt. Reverend Tate, a former defensive end for the NFL's Detroit football team, headed the New Missionary Disciples Church in Southwest Atlanta, where a lot of the old black money supported his lifestyle. They loved this pudgy, slightly balding, black as night Morehouse graduate. He could bring it. Then you have the Right Reverend Lucious Foster, whose congregation of nearly 6,000 regulars included 4 councilmen, 2 state legislators, the police chief, 9 local and state judges, and an occasional visit by a former president of the United States. These were the current proprietors of Atlanta's new black money, made possible by the old black Atlanta money. They met each Sunday in what appeared to be a sort of futuristic silver and purple spaceship, complete with orbiting moons and Saturn-like rings on a phallic-like entrance. Oh yeah, it came with a parking deck, which incidentally wiped out a neighborhood playground. There were enough Bibles trimmed in gold and all white for every member, visitor, and child. The seating, once you figured out how to get inside, was similar to seating in a stadium, complete with ushers in uniforms to assist you. It had an escalator to take you to your designated area. Did I mention you had to purchase a ticket in advance to hear the word of God? Then there was this moving automatic collection plate that went up each aisle, down each row, and actually rang bells and lit up like a Christmas tree every time a donation was put through the check verification machine. You heard right. The bigger the check, the brighter the lights. Reverend Foster called this the shepherd's plate. I guess that meant the members in his congregation were the sheep. Flock. But the oddest thing about the People's Church of Restoration and Welfare was that there was not a picture of our Lord Jesus to be found anywhere near this church. There sure as hell was a humongous portrait of the Reverend hanging high above the pulpit, though. And none of the influential flock found this odd. Strange, don't you think? Now we come to the last of the three musketeers, as they had become known. Rev Nicodemus Allen. He was a fourth-generation God-talker, but the first legitimately educated theologian of the family. Hell, the others were jackleg ministers who traveled the South, sucking the money and faith out of poor Negroes in South Georgia, rural Alabama, and all of South Carolina for 50 years or more. And this tall, red-ass nigga was the slickest of them all. It was his connection that turned the other two straight out. It started at a political fundraiser to pay off the campaign debt of a failed re-election bid for president by a Georgia peanut farmer. Y'all remember Skippy? A young black starlet, late of a TV network sitcom, had campaigned for the incumbent president. At one of those $1,000 dinners, she caught the eye of this handsome young preacher, who was dressed more like a Fortune 500 executive than a man of God. I think it was the platinum Rolex that made him stand out in the crowd. She recognized Rev Allen from his picture in Ebony Magazine's 100 Most Influential African Americans issue the previous year. It was the last time he would make that list. Young Miss Thang was no longer an invitee on the party circuit in Hollywood. That's what happens when your show is canceled. She did anything and everything to keep her lifestyle and image on that magical level of being a celebrity. She partied, smoked, snorted, fucked, sucked, and kissed ass to anybody that was remotely associated with a possible TV show. You see, after a 5-year run on network TV, 3 covers of Jet, 1 Emmy nomination, numerous photos and People, Us, and all the tabloids, she could feel her career slipping into darkness when she spotted the Rev Allen holding court in one corner of the hall. She made a beeline to his space, talked her way into his hotel suite and his pants, and gave him his first hit. It made his dick and tongue hard. It was on then. She decided to really hook him up after that night. They started taking his private jet to Miami, where the price of dope was a fraction of what it was everywhere else. They would land at one of the private airports in Fort Lauderdale outside the city, rent a car, and go straight to Liberty City, the poorest black community in Miami, where cocaine rolled down every street like an avalanche. Liberty City reminded Rev Allen of the burnt-out communities near downtown Atlanta, but without well-to-do black neighborhoods nearby. The young actress had no problem buying close to ½ kilos of Peruvian flake. She'd done it many times before. Her connection? A former Miami Dolphin running back she used to bang, who now hustled anything he could just to keep his front up. After scoring their dope, they'd head straight back to Atlanta before anyone noticed he was gone. But the Rev couldn't, or wouldn't, wait until they got back. Lately, he would start cooking his dope just as soon as they were airborne. But the young actress, who, like so many others like her and use people more than they use dope, cautioned him about lighting fires on planes. She reminded him of a washed-up teenage heartthrob who blew up his airplane while freebasing in the air. But Rev Allen thought it was the coolest place to get fucked up and, quote, do some things. Young Miss Hollywood checked out after maxing his 2 platinum credit cards and went looking for other suckers on the East Coast. He never saw her again, not even in commercials. Rev Allen, who started a voter education project aimed at young, single mothers in '79, knew Anthony from these and other pseudo-community-based projects whose main purpose was the image building of churches, that is, creating organizations that actually make it appear as if the church, any church, was not in the business just to buy preachers tax-free Mercedes, mansions, private schools for their children, and personal jets to fly around the country. Now, Anthony was recruited to the University of Crack by Nick, and they had both graduated from big-time theology schools, Emory and ITC at Atlanta University. They worked these fake-ass do-good programs to death. They actually educated and registered a record number of voters, Enough so that over 95% of black metro Atlanta voters went to the polls in a presidential election in the late 80s to put another Southern governor in the White House. An Arkansas redneck sexaholic that black women swoon over. Well, one time, when these two young religious lions were out in Little Five Points, the Atlanta neighborhood that's populated with the caretakers of the hippie legacy of the 60s, they went to a biker's bar. That's where they would buy their high-grade snow from one of the members of the North Florida Gators, a notorious motorcycle club known for their incredible capacity to commit horrifying crimes. They imported more dope in the Southeast than the Mafia. Their connection was a 6-foot, 4-inch, 300-pound Viking-looking gorilla named Big Red. Rev Allen met Red while ministering to the sick and shut-in people at an old folks' home. Nick prayed and comforted an old lady with such sincerity that this former president of the Daughters of the Confederacy found a place in her heart for one of the descendants of the very people her forebears waged war to keep enslaved. God can make a way. When Red first realized that this young clergyman had made a difference in his mother's will to survive, he too mellowed his attitude toward black folks. In fact, he mellowed so much that Red found out the Right Reverend Nicodemus Allen was smoking more coke than most NBA ball players. And believe me, in the 80s, that was the biggest dope market. Red always made sure that Nick got his dope at a premium and that it was top of the line. Big Red had, for some reason, changed back to his nigger-hating ways unbeknownst to Nick, who was now being set up for a robbery and probably serious injury. Right as he and Anthony approached Big Red and his constant sidekick, Anteater, go figure, a tall, slender, black-as-night waitress with golden red dreads, splashed them with cold beer and steered them to the men's room back behind the bar, apologizing and wiping beer off the boys as they went.
Lord have mercy. I'm so sorry. Please excuse me. Y'all come on in here now, right back this way. I got some towels to dry you off with.
Young lady, don't be so worked up, said Reverend Nicodemus.
But I just want to...
Her voice then trailed off to a whisper as she peeked through the cracks in the slats of the wall that separated the bar from the back bathroom.
Now listen here and just shut up. Y'all better find a way to get the hell out of here, and I mean fast. Them dirty snake-ass gators planning on fucking y'all up.
What the hell you talking about? I got that redneck's mama on Medicaid and prayed her back to good health. That boy can't read and he can't write. So he don't know what them folks at the nursing home was doing to her. Shoot. He loved me, Rev Foster said with the conviction of a zealot.
Love you? Love you? Boy, you better wake up. You just don't get it, do you? Listen, he was perfectly happy that a preacher, black, white, or otherwise, took a real Christian interest in his mama. But, well, look at you.
What you mean, look at me? I'm clean and I carry myself respectfully,
Nick,
said Anthony, who was now watching the door somewhat nervously.
I ain't that hard-headed. If this bitch...
The waitress turned on her heels and gave Anthony a dagger stares.
Okay, I'm sorry. But what is she telling the truth?
What are you talking about?
Big Red has been telling everybody about seeing you praying with his mama and all at the old folks' home. But you act like you pity him. Acting like you so much better than them. You need to remember, black boy. Peckerwood still don't want you to have a mule, and he don't.
Both preachers, who were sons of the South, knew the metaphor she was reaching for immediately. It goes something like this. One of the first lessons in Southern black survival lore that is handed down through the generations is a fable about the white sharecropper killing the mule of his black sharecropper neighbor. Why, you ask? Because he didn't have one. And he has to confide in his redneck and training son, boy, if you ain't better than a nigga, you ain't better than nothing. Nick and Anthony were quick studies. They knew these crackers couldn't care less about the consequences for maiming two black men. Most of the bikers were already convicted felons who dominated drug distribution in the Southeast. And if they did get jail time for any criminal activity, remember, they're the most feared group in American prisons. The boys were now scared to death and racking their brains for an answer. You'd think they would prey on it, wouldn't you? Well, of course they had a revelation. Call Lou! Reverend Lucious Foster was the last leader of the Parkway Travelers, a 50s and 60s Atlanta street gang. Though it wasn't as organized as today's gangs, it was probably feared more. You see, they targeted people who were a challenge: police, KKK, police. And they were po'. I mean ghetto po'. Raggedy ass apartments po'. No family members with job po'. And Sweet Lulu was their leader. He was the only one who could read and write. Years before he turned a new leaf in his life, Lou was suspected in a number of assaults and at least 2 murders. The weapons of choice being a .22 caliber, a Saturday Night Special, a Hank Aaron Louisville Slugger, and the ultimate life changer, the ice pick. Rev Foster, whose cell phone was vibrating on the 2nd floor of the Enterprise, was himself vibrating in the secluded back room of the minister's office. He had been counseling a young female parishioner for the past 2 hours. He was about to wash the sin from his and her body when she finally heard the phone buzzing. Foster, though he was in great shape for a 30-something-year-old, had just been put through the ringer by this, quote, young faithful. He struggled to the phone only to hear his compatriot's shaky plea for help. Lou told them to stay put. He was about to return to his younger alter ego. Lucious hurried the prayer service to an end, grabbed his sawed-off, double-barrel pump shotgun from behind the giant Corinthian leather office chair, and raced down the spiral staircase, up the purple carpeted aisle, through the large white and gold trimmed doors that split into a blue crucifix when opened, leaped over the fancy steel railing, and jumped into a royal blue Jaguar SUV customized for power. Stop looking. They only built one. Foster actually lived for this day. He hated the shit out of these rednecks. They think they some badass crackers, he would say. As he wove his way through Atlanta's mangled streets, stoplights, and unending traffic tie-ups, Atlanta's not laid out on a grid like other major cities, he eyed the highway that would take him to his panic-stricken cohorts. That road is called Presidential Parkway. There, you have a cluster of official buildings where guests of international flavor and importance hold numerous conferences with dignitaries from around the world to discuss and theorize solutions for world problems. These ideas and their final declarations are never implemented and have no impact on the poor and enslaved. That was President Skippy's true legacy. Sweet Lou was foaming at the mouth because he was on Moreland Avenue, only minutes away from the Little 5 Points area. He dialed his large cell phone and called the boys to find out their current state of health. Hey, Anthony, how y'all doing? Y'all all right?
Where you at, Lou? You need to hurry up. Them white boys moving around like they looking for us. And I could tell they got some guns or something.
Nick grabbed the phone from Anthony and pleaded for Lou to hurry, even offering up his observations. Lou, I think I saw some brass knuckles in one of their hands. I can't let them beat me up like that. I don't know what I'm going to do. Nick, I'm coming around the corner now. You need to go ahead and call a lawyer, 1 or 2 of your councilman friends, because I'm about to turn this motherfucker out. When Lou got to the bar, he made sure the shotgun shell holder was packed, but then Lou's attitude took a small nosedive. Damn, I hope it's more than 2 of them. I can't believe they got me out of that good pussy just for 2 goddamn pieces of trailer trash. Well, fuck it. He then wheeled the fancy Jag right into the 2 chopped up bikes and sent them spiraling down the sidewalk. Lou knew how to get a battle rolling. He was hoping they'd run outside with their little magnums drawn. He would then blow their asses to Kingdom Come, use his politics, and probably walk on the murder charges. There aren't many Atlanta juries that would send you away for killing neo-Nazis. When Red and his fellow skinhead ran outside ready to draw down on Sweet Lou, he saw the double silver barrel hanging out the window. Knowing their scheme must have been blown, they picked up their bikes and motored away for another day. Hallelujah! After this and a few other incidents that involved the trio in semi-dangerous situations, they started cutting corners, and they thought they could keep their recreational use of dope under control and on the down low. Note, to those of you who plan to experiment with drugs, if nobody knows of it but you, that's 1 person too many. Don't ever try it. That's rule number 1. But that geek ozone high you get from cocaine insists that you do it 1 more time, every time you do it. So the boys started buying rocks. No more guys of the sophisticated, I'm better than the dope hoes because I cook and purify my dope with baking soda. The boys started to Jones every night. Their days of being clean-cut, do-good ministers who were just messing around a little were long gone. The real spiral into crack hell was now about to spin their lives out of control. 2 years later, Anthony Tate was on Glenwood Drive in the east side of Atlanta. He was headed to a crime-infested government housing project named Little Vietnam. Now, you know that if you got to go to a place with a reputation that reflects a war for your dope, you need help. It was 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning, only a few hours from the time he was scheduled to deliver one of his patented fiery sermons. Usually quotable and applicable, this man was the kind of preacher who moved his congregation, whether in the sanctuary or over the radio airways. But right now, with his mouth chafed and ashy white and all his eyes bucked like a deer caught in the headlights, Rev Tate was not at that moment a man of the cloth, but just another crackhead trying to maintain that ozone rush you get from hitting those rocks. When you get like this, you're at the mercy of some punk who's dealing dime rocks and laughing at you while taking your money and your soul. In this case, it was a motherfucker named Junior. Rev drove around a dozen apartment buildings until he spotted the 16-year-old hardcore hood. Dressed in denim overalls with an Atlanta Falcons sweatshirt pulled over them and a white Atlanta Braves baseball cap, Junior stood in the darkened doorway of a particularly occupied unit next to an empty, trash-filled lot, which was his getaway exit. Now, Junior didn't have to run after every car that pulled into the complex. His rocks sold themselves. They were large dimes cut into exact squares and potent. He had his market of working dope users locked down. They sought him out 24/7. He was always available. Boy, he had to be a vampire. He never slept.
Junior, I need a little play,
pleaded the Rev.
You know I'm good for it. Today's Sunday,
he blasphemed. That don't mean shit to me, said the 8th grade dropout. You know you're already in my pocket for about a yard.
Look, I'll give you an extra 20. All I need is a dove to get over on this young thing I got back at the crib.
I need to get 150 from you tonight. Don't make me have to look for you. You're starting to get a little shaky, Rev. Then he flipped a $20 boulder into the passenger side of the now not too sharp Escalade. Crackheads neglect their cars first. And slithered back into the darkness to wait on his next customer/victim. Rev Tate zoomed through the apartment parking lots and hit the main road that took him to the expressway to the west side of Atlanta, which was where his semi-mansion was. That's where he tried to hit his dope and write his sermon at the same time. His life was bottoming out. Sweet Lulu had gotten even sweeter over the past year or so. He was in the back room of a metal shack that sat behind one of the dozen of auto junkyards in northwest Atlanta. Lucious was begging for another hit from one of the several regulars who sold their rocks at Angel's dilapidated, smoke-filled shelter. This was after spending over $1,000 between Friday and Sunday. Now he couldn't even get a dime on credit. After some bargaining and begging, Sneak, a nasty, greasy-ass bootleg mechanic, coaxed Lou to get on his knees behind a half-closed bathroom door. If he did that, he'd give him a hit. Lou gave in, despite the presence of at least 6 other people in the house. Nigga would do almost anything for a hit. Lou missed his 3rd Sunday in 2 months. The congregation was getting impatient. The board of directors had called an emergency meeting. Nicodemus Allen was swallowed up by the black hole of crack addiction. The parishioners of Greater Travels AME had long since tired of his constant absences from the pulpit, his pitiful excuses for fundraising, and his insistent begging to the deacon board for salary advances to satisfy every collection agency known to man. But the last time he was ever allowed in that church was that fateful first Sunday in May when, in the middle of one of the worst sermons he'd ever delivered to the faithful, he stopped mid-amen, and well, this is what took place. Brothers and sisters, most of you know that I've had some serious issues here lately. Well, I'm just going to tell you the truth. The whole truth, and beg for your understanding and forgiveness. No more lies, no more shams. I, the Right Reverend Nicodemus Allen, have become victim to one of the worst and most despicable conspiracy ever conceived to destroy the black community. We all know that drugs are imported into this country in quantities that are too large to think that it's not done for that very reason. Cocaine rolls down our streets Every hour, every day, there's a dope seller on every block of every black neighborhood in America. But nobody makes you use that poison, shouted a member of the congregation. Maybe not, said Rev Nick. But we have learned from the Bible that the devil can tempt you with the things you know are bad for you but seem oh so good to you. And most of us, at one time or another, succumb to the devil's temptation in our lives. Now, I know what you're thinking. He's a man of God. That's true. But I'm a man nonetheless. Y'all, I've fallen victim to the devil that is crack. The audience gasped. They weren't surprised by the confusion. Most of the church members had already surmised or heard through the black grapevine that he was a crackhead. That he would admit it from the pulpit on Sunday, though, was certainly something else. But the Rev wasn't through. He had an even bigger surprise. There's one more thing I need from y'all. He then pointed to 3 well-dressed audience members sitting in the back row. Those fellas back there have told me that if I don't pay them the money I owe them for dope, I'm a dead man right after church. So will you all please give generously one more time to the preacher's fund and then just pass the place right back to them? This stunning announcement was met with calls of, quote, hypocrite, devil, son of a bitch, crackhead motherfucker, bastard ass, stealing ass, no good nigga, and on and on. The congregation paid off his debts, took the church keys and the raggedy Mercedes with the double lean, and kicked Nick out of the back door into the alley where he's been ever since. Redemption? The black church, like Jesus Christ, is a patient and forgiving lot. And you don't get to be a mover and a shaker, shot caller, big baller for you younger listeners, in Black Atlanta if you aren't able to make deals and conciliatory moves on certain sensitive matters. Missionary Disciples was the church of the original Black Power in Atlanta. For instance, the families of the first independently owned black insurance company in America, Atlanta Life, were lifelong members. Its founder helped lay the foundation for the building. The first black daily newspaper in America, the Atlanta Daily World, founded by the Scott family, had a Scott on every deacon board, usher board, and decision-making board in the church. The first black boys club in the South, which was opened by the first basketball coach of Clark College and the Atlanta University Center, was also a founding missionary disciple. The first black this, the first black that, etc. This powerful political base made sure that Rev Tate would retain his dignity, position, rising political influence, and of course, his pulpit. Tate did his rehab in Australia under the guise of a 6-month missionary assignment. Yeah, the son of a bitch stopped using dope, but he stole more from the church's pocket and regularly sold his political clout to the highest bidder, no matter what the issue was or how much urgent attention the matter might need. Motherfucker. Rev Foster found a way to clean up his act and keep the spaceship flying in the direction of Mars or wherever those new Atlanta Negroes thought they were going, because they sure as hell weren't headed toward the poor sections of the A. Oh yeah, did I fail to mention that their main religious philosophy was, you can help the poor by not becoming one of them, or associating with them, or doing anything for them? These bastard-ass niggas kept their noses so far in the air that they couldn't smell the AIDS epidemic killing 1,000 people every day in Africa, or the rainforests in South America disappearing and displacing God's children, or North Korea's starving population because what little money was available under an insane dictator was being spent on bombs and bullets. They couldn't even smell the stink coming from the homeless shelter they passed every day on the way to their salaried slave post. They couldn't smell, well, you get the idea. And hell no, I can't stand those kind of niggas. They can kiss my ass. Rev Foster might have kicked his dope habit after being threatened by his mortgage holder that his shit was in foreclosure. Oh yeah, status shock will make you give that shit up quick. But he didn't let go of one thing he discovered during his time as a crackhead. He bought himself a pair of knee pads for the inquisitive male numbers of his congregation. Now, there's nothing wrong with his foray into that other world as long as he keeps his pilgrimages into male crotchdom above the legal age limit. Only time will tell. Nicodemus Allen's fall from pastoral grace was harder and colder than the other 2 snake handlers. When he tried to call on them for whatever, they never answered or returned his calls. They never helped him find shelter from the streets or even put in a good word for him anywhere at any time. As far as they were concerned, Nick, like all the other blasphemous things they did, never happened. Like the time they were lighting up those glass wicks all over the city, never happened. Neither did the time they ran a train on the newly elected Georgia Congresswoman all Thanksgiving Day. Or the week none of them could be found because they were holed up in the Peachtree Plaza Hotel's 50th floor suite with 7, that's right, 7, recent high school graduates, 3 of whom were homecoming queens. Or the time they spent nearly $12,000 just smoking in a Hilton Head condo one summer week. Nah, old Nick was Reverend Nobody, at least to them and to his former congregations. He spent almost 2 years as one of the thousands of wandering homeless in the city, once dubbed as, quote, too busy to hate. My mama used to say it was just too busy to care. He ate from garbage cans in various church kitchens that fed the homeless on a regular basis. But there was one thing that did happen to Nick. After being rejected by those whom he thought had loved him, those whom he had once prayed and sacrificed for, he was truly redeemed by what he thought was a fall from God's grace. You see, Nick never did anybody wrong except himself. Then he had a revelation that he must be among the people that needed God the most. This cold cocked him out of his crack addiction. He cleaned himself up and began to minister to the people of the city who were treated the worst, had the least, and suffered the most. He knew in his heart and from the Gospels that those were the people closest to Jesus, and now so was he. Amen, Nick. Amen.
Crack Diaries is based on the book of short stories written by my father, Richard Blake Thomas. This is a DCA and 404 production, directed by Dan Allen and Joe Thomas, edited by Joe Thomas and recorded at DCA Studios. Starring Danny Davis, Daniel Allen, and myself, Joe Thomas. Please subscribe to our Patreon and stay tuned for a preview of the next episode.